Welcome to episode 193 of the Hunting Party Podcast.
You are not saying that correctly. We have just been watching BlizzCon. You are supposed to say that with emphasis, like Chris Claremont or Chris Metzen opening BlizzCon. You have to put some strength into that.
What? Oh, okay.
Opening take two.
Opening take two.
With feeling this time.
Welcome to episode 193 of the Hunting Party Podcast. I'm Arth from the Warcraft Hunters Union. No.
And I'm
all right, episode.
All right. .com.
Take three. Welcome to the special BlizzCon episode of the Hunting Party Podcast. I'm Arth from the Warcraft Hunters Union.
And I'm Darkbrew from the Brewhall.com and the Brewhall on Twitter. And all I want to know is it beta yet? And can I get in? Because I'm ready to go here.
And I'm Ollie Sauter, and I am right in front of you, Lokhtar Ogar from the Hunting Party Podcast.
And today, if you haven't figured it out, is Saturday, November the 9th, 2013, and BlizzCon is happening. And if you want to participate in the chat room today, have your name mangled on the air by one of us, just create a cool, huntery warlord name, and you'll be able to join in the fun. And send us some questions.
Yep. And joining us today in the chat room... We'll try, but yeah, we might not today. We got a lot to get through. Joining us in the chat room, though, BM Jager, Keb, Elapide, Honeybum, Induates, K-Probs, Maybon, Oxander, Premont, Slugslinger, Vulture Eye, and Pharaomus. Our lovely moderator, as always, is the really excited Ollie Sauter. You can send in your questions to her in a private message by left-clicking her name, selecting PM, and typing in the new tab. Or if you're not listening live, you can send us a question at huntingpartypodcast@gmail.com, and we'll try to get to it on a future show. Well, so obviously BlizzCon is happening, and we got a lot to get through. We're not going to get through all of it today. There's been tons of information, and this is really going to be what we're talking about for the next couple months as a community, and I assume on the podcast as well. It'll be the primary topic of conversation. So we're going to try to hit the major points. There's a little bit of hunter information out there. We'll try to get to that, but there is a lot out there that we might not be able to cover, but we'll try to get through most of it today because we have some really exciting announcements coming out of BlizzCon.
Oh yeah.
But
everything is exciting.
Yes, but before we jump in to that, we do have a couple announcements. The first is that Dark Brew's out next week, or actually the next 2 weeks.
I'll be gone the next 2 weeks, so I won't be able to participate on the show. I'll be sitting on a beach drinking margaritas and Coronas and things.
Wow,
I'll be thinking about you guys.
Enjoy your vacation. I'm sure you will. Yeah. Enjoy your vacation. We are having a show the next 2 weeks. I am trying to line up some guests for us. I already have some verbal agreements. We don't have nothing official at this point, but I'm trying to get some interesting guests, and obviously we have a lot to talk about with BlizzCon, so if nothing else, we'll just let Ollie talk about lore for an hour and a half or so. And so we are going to continue to have a show, but Dark will be out the next 2 weeks. And also, Roger Brown just won the rating challenge at BlizzCon with Method up against, what was the name of the other?
Midwinter was the other guild.
Midwinter, yeah, was the Alliance rating guild. So they're live at BlizzCon. Roger Brown's guild just won the rating challenge there. They killed Garrosh before Midwinter did. So congrats to Method and Roger Brown. Obviously, he's doing that. He can't be on the podcast today. Before we knew what the exact schedule was going to be like, we were hoping to have him on live from BlizzCon, but that's, of course, not going to be happening. So he's still committed to being on the show. We're just going to try to get him on sometime later this month.
Yeah, and he has said he definitely wants to come back on, and we definitely want to have him on here, especially with some of the raid changes we'll be talking about. I'd love to get his thoughts on that. So stay tuned and just be a little patient, and we'll get him back here sooner than later.
Yep.
The raid panel's about to start, so it's in the middle of our podcast. I know where I'm going to be.
Yeah. So if you send like a question for the Q&A and somehow it doesn't get read, you'll know why because Allie's watching the raid panel and feeding us information from there.
Right, she's dual boxing. I was watching, but I stopped it a few minutes before the podcast started because it was just going to be too much going on for me to try to do both. So, well, what do you guys want to jump into first here?
Yeah, let's just start from the beginning. The new expansion, Warlords of Draenor, was announced yesterday. We kind of knew the title ahead of time, but I have to say, if I recall when Cataclysm launched, like MMO Champion had all the scoop and a lot of information prior to BlizzCon and anything official. And this year, all we really heard was the name Warlords of Draenor. I certainly hadn't heard of any other details, and in fact, Blizzard may have even tried to throw us off the scent a little bit by having, was it the Dark Below was another name they had trademarked. So
actually, they said that wasn't them. They said that was a fan that they don't know who it was who trademarked it in their name.
Okay.
And they thought that was kind of hilarious.
That's awesome.
So that wasn't a ruse by Blizzard, but I'm sure they didn't mind that at all.
So for future expansions, just know World of Morlocks, Murlocs. You can still get that name, and people start spreading rumors based on something you buy in Blizzard.
Yeah, I think Hello Kitty Island Adventure is definitely taken those, unfortunately.
Oh, Kitty Island.
But yeah, Warlords of Draenor. So what do we know? We know there's going to be the new world of Draenor, which was kind of interesting to hear
because the old world of Outland.
Right, because we have the old world of Draenor. In case you didn't know, that Outland is actually Draenor, only it's all blown up and stuff.
Right. So the story happens. So Garrosh, after the events of Miss Pandaria, goes on trial, but he escapes. Of course. So I do want to point out that Thrall was ready to kill his ass, and Varian stopped him. So you can't put this one on the Horde. I just want to point that out. But Garrosh ends up going back in time, and
with the help of a mysterious figure.
Yes, with the help of a mysterious figure. The story is not going to be about Garrosh. He's not the main villain. So he is a player in what's going on, and he creates a lot of it. But we're not going to have the same end game boss that we did in Miss Pandaria or something like that.
Yeah, they didn't tell us who the end boss is. Other people said maybe not too hard to guess, but
yeah, there's a couple ideas out there that seem pretty reasonable, but we don't know for sure yet. We knew Garrosh was the final boss in Miss pretty early.
I thought we did too. Yes.
I said that at BlizzCon. I think.
Yeah. Either BlizzCon or shortly after launch. Like we knew pretty early. So he's not the main villain, and it's going to be a past version of Outlands. They're not, and this was real interesting to me, they're not doing what they did in Cataclysm, where they're just altering existing zones. They are completely rebuilding them from scratch. So there's going to be some elements that you remember from like Burning Crusade, but it's going to feel like a completely different world, because it will be a completely different world. Shattrath is not going to be the capital city. It'll still be in the game. It's also going to be much larger, and I know, Ali, you were saying you saw some concept art for it, yeah?
Yeah, it's like it's a draining city, and that goes all the way out to the lake where the fishing guy was, except it's not a marsh anymore. It's the Sea of Zangar.
Yeah, it's like a little ocean. Zangar Marsh does not exist here. It's not a marsh. It's an actual, like you say, sea. It's an ocean. So this is like a coastal city, which is kind of neat.
And the water is almost up to the top of, or at least like near the top of those giant mushrooms. So you can see them just barely poking out of the water. It's that high, that much water.
That's awesome.
And it's just a beautiful looking city from the concept art. And Shadow Moon Valley, how much prettier is that going to be now before it's like turned into, Legion infested?
Well, it was pretty gorgeous. Ugly before. So
it was one of the ugliest zones in the game. I never enjoyed being in there. It was all just green and green smoke,
black.
Green. Yeah, it was just a very desolate and ugly zone. And now it's going to be gorgeous.
And that's where the Alliance is going to be, is hanging out in basically the Black Temple.
Yeah, it's going to be called like Karabor, I guess.
Yeah,
is the original name.
That's what I was going to say. Some fans of the lore will enjoy that, especially on the Alliance side, because their home city is going to be Black Temple.
Yeah. So. Which is very cool. And they said one thing they said about the zone is it's always going to be nighttime there, and that was part because they, I guess, kind of had some concept art showing what it would look like at night, and they just fell in love with it, and they said, hey, let's just make it look like this all the time. So
one of the things, and this brings up an interesting point. I'm sure someone has raised the question. I I haven't seen an answer to it though. Of is this going to get rid of sort of old world Outland content? Are we still going to be able to do BC raids?
They said yes. They said Outland is going to exist. I don't know.
They can get around that pretty easily because I'm sure there's some method by which we have to like go through time. So there might just be two different ways to get into the Outland.
So one of the things they said they're going to do, they're going to obviously have the pre-expansion event, and we'll kind of know when that happens. And they said the Dark Portal is going to turn red, and so it seems to indicate to me that we would get to Draenor through the Dark Temple. But if that's the case, I don't know how we would then get to Outland. In other words, that's how the Dark Portal was still the way we went and got to Outland. But my understanding
There is another way because we're going with Khazgar, who's Medivh's apprentice, and Medivh, his house is Garrison, and Garrison is a building, a castle, a palace that exists in several time zones at once. So you can actually go in and come out 50 years earlier than you went in. That could be one way. And Khazgar now owns Garrison, so we could be going back to Garrison to see him, and he'll take us. That would make sense.
That would be kind of cool because Garrison was a favorite place for a lot of people. I mean, Burning Crusade, as we talked about this a little bit pre-show, was a favorite expansion for a lot of people. So this really is sort of going home again a little bit. It's just sort of we're going backwards and forwards all at once here. It's just kind of interesting. One thing they did say yesterday up on the stage was that this wasn't going to be a Back to the Future expansion. So this wasn't trying to change. Alter the course of history per se. That's not necessarily our goal. I mean, Garrosh apparently is going back because he doesn't like the way the Horde turned out. He wants to create this more pure Horde, this Iron Horde they called it. But I don't know that our goal is going to be to stop things from happening. We're not going to try and prevent the Burning Legion before it began or stop the Lich King and all that kind of stuff. I don't think that's going to be that's not going to be the goal of the expansion.
Right.
Well, we can't because the chromatic dragons, Chromie and the rest, I mean, they don't want us to alter history. It may not have been nice history, but history it is. So unless we've been living in the wrong time stream all along, and Garage is now fixing it, if we try and alter, the history of the Lich King and the Legion invasion and the destruction of Draenor, they will fight us. And that's just a whole new can of worms we probably don't want to mess with.
No, I guess not. Although I don't know on the scale of they said there will be repercussions in our world from these actions, which they didn't come out and say what the next expansion would be after Warlords of Draenor, but they just seemed to indicate that they've already
they know
already. They've got that sort of planned out,
which is good.
At some level,
I
which
like
is very
that they
cool.
have that planned out. They have a long-term. They have a long-term plan for this. That's cool.
Exactly, and they may not know all the features and things when they talk about the next expansion, but at least they have an idea of how they want the story and the narrative to play out moving forward, which is great. So they can, plan characters and events in this expansion accordingly and know how that will progress moving forward, which I think is very, very cool. And they've done a good job with that ever since. Certainly with Cataclysm, they were able to carry that story forward into Mists of Pandaria, and looks like Mists of Pandaria is segueing nicely into Warlords of Draenor, so they've got a hold on that and a way to do that now.
Yeah.
New character models.
There are new character models. There's going to be a lot. I've already seen some of the pictures. They all seem to be in their. They all seem to be in.
Their underwear.
Swimwear or underwear. It's very
one of
very little.
Dwarves
So
in the armor, which was
if that's your thing,
Yeah, but I mean, they did a panel on this yesterday.
The art panel.
The art panel, and they really spent a lot of time on the character models. And I mean, it's more than just making them a little more prettier and more dwarfy or orcish. I mean, they've been able to add things for the animations, especially. And to give these characters a lot more facial expressions, a lot more details in their faces, and lots of things. And
even little things. Yeah,
move.
Hair is now animated. Yeah, so your character's gonna feel a bit more alive now.
You're still gonna look like a dwarf and an orc. You're not losing that sense of. You're not completely revamped, but you're gonna be a lot more detailed to your character now, and they're gonna be a lot more animated than they were before, and it's gonna be a lot of fun.
I wonder if clothes that aren't form-fitting, like a robe, if that's going to start being, well, like fluttery as well now. That would be kind of nice.
Yeah, it might be interesting, like if you have like mage robes or something. So,
but not all the characters are finished, but they were able to show off quite a few of them yesterday in the art panel. They got to look at Tauren, gnomes, undead, orcs. I don't know who they didn't have. They didn't see any of the elves.
They didn't show the trolls.
Yeah, or the trolls.
And they didn't show night elves or blood elves.
Mm-hmm. And I don't think they had the male and female versions done.
You know,
but
they only showed the female gnomes. I don't think
pretty
they showed
hard to
any
mess
other
with.
females.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to mess with perfection. So I assume the elven models would take longer.
Yeah, and keep in mind too. I think what they did with these new character models are kind of what they did with the Pandaren already in this expansion. So I don't think the Pandaren are going to change. But if you're trying to get a sense of how they might be, you know, just take a look at a Pandaren character, and that might give you an idea.
Mm-hmm.
Of what your new character is going to be like, but yeah, that's exciting. That's been a long time coming.
Yeah.
I don't know if we mentioned about the level cap being increased to 100, so we're going to go up 10 levels this time instead of 5.
Yeah, nice round number. Everyone wants to get to level 100. You know, it'll make you feel all powerful. I'm sure as soon as you get to level 100, they'll give you some like random fetch quest to make you feel like you're level 2 again. But. But yeah,
and that wasn't the big. We kind of knew that going in because the heirloom items, weapons that Garrosh drops said they worked from 90 to 100. So we kind of had a sense that that's what their level cap was going.
Right. I forgot about that. But yeah, I guess we could have seen that coming. Speaking of leveling.
Hey, wait. Speaking of heirlooms are no longer going to take up bag space. How great is that?
There's actually a lot of things that aren't going to take up bag space now, not just heirlooms. So they're making a lot of things collectible in the same way that mounts are, in the same way that, what else do we have right now that's collectible?
Yeah, the mounts and pets have their own collections.
Yeah, vanity pets or
battle pets, yeah.
Yeah, the battle pets and stuff now. So they're quest items. Quest items are no longer going to be in your bag. So they're not going to be taking up a bunch of room. Heirloom items are now going to be in their own separate tab, so collectible, so you're not going to have to worry about bag space for them.
Well, and the other nice thing about the heirloom items, too, they'll be available to you on any character. So if you log into one of your characters, they'll have access to that heirloom tab, and they'll just be able to equip the items that you have there. So no worrying about, oh, yeah, I left it on this character over here, logging in there, and emailing them across the board, so they'll just
and that's wonderful. That's wonderful.
Really, really nice change there.
Same with toys. So, like when you're questing and you get all those crazy little gizmos that do things, those are now going to be in a collection. So you're not going to have to worry about bag space for them. I would have loved to have had that an expansion or two ago because I used to keep a bunch of those, but then I got to the point where I had no room for them, and so I just got rid of a ton of them. So I only keep like a few these days, but it would have been cool to keep a lot of them. So I wish we had had that at least one expansion earlier. However, better late than never.
Yeah, I mean, half my bags right now on Dark Brew are gizmos and gadgets like that, the things that I just carry around. And I've got a whole bunch sitting in the bank that I would love to carry around, but I don't really have the space for them. So that's kind of a nice change. They also said resources and materials, some of those things are now going to be able to come in larger stacks. So
up to 100.
Yeah, up to 100. So instead of that's nice. So if you
like honestly, that's everything they're doing here is a way bigger difference than any bag increase that they've done in an expansion in terms of just making sure you don't have a bunch of crap in your bags.
Yeah,
so
I mean, herbs that stack
really
at 20.
Good.
You have it's five full stacks at 20, and that's now going to take up one slot in your bag. That's awesome.
Yep. It says bags are now sortable, which I don't know. I use a easy little mod for my bags. Anyway.
Yeah, and they said one bag.
I don't use the default. I don't use the default UI anyway for that.
Yeah, they said they didn't think that one bag was a good solution for them, which I don't understand that. I think I don't get that. So you'll probably still have a use for a bag add-on. I have one that basically combines everything into one bag. I think it's called, the one I use is called One Bag. That's the name of the add-on. But the Old Republic, they have one inventory. I like the way I like the way they set theirs up. It's just one one inventory you can see all your slots and stuff. I don't have any problem finding things in those bags either, and so I don't know. But that's they want to do it, and it's just fine. So you still might want to use a bag add-on. I probably will continue to use. I think I use Arc Inventory right now.
Okay.
So I would imagine I'll continue to use that because it has some other features that I like too.
Sure, yeah.
And well, I forget what else they said about the bags. There'll be some other things too. You'll be able to identify things that were recently added to your bags, things that are vendor trash will be easy to identify. They'll have coloring for epic versus blue versus green items. So a lot of things that you get already in some of these add-ons, they're just incorporating into the game itself.
Yep. So
well, Blizzard's always trying to take a popular add-on and integrate it into the game.
Yeah.
And they kind of stole some stuff from SWTOR as well.
Mm-hmm.
With the whole companion bit. Sending your companions off to do your quests and do your raids for you. That's going to be hilarious.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute. Let's just when we go one more small thing. They're going to do this level 90 character boost.
Now, did I hear this correctly? That you can just like pick a character and they'll make them level 90?
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna give it to you as a
start a character. And
they're gonna give you, I think, a one-time free. Maybe this might be something you have to buy in the future, but I think they're gonna give everybody the opportunity to do it for at least one character. But like you just said, yes, you could go in day one of the expansion, create a level 1 character, push a button or whatever, and poof, he'll be level 90. He'll have a appropriate set of starter gear for level 90.
I'm not even an alcoholic, and that's unbelievable. So.
I know. And what they said too is if you pick a higher level character, maybe you have someone sitting at level 70 or 72 who's partway through Northrend. They're going to clean up your inventory. They'll get rid of all your old quests for you, I guess, and kind of make it so you're really really ready for Warlords of Draenor. So.
Yeah, they want to just drop you right into it if you want to, and I'm for that.
I like that too. Like I said, the last couple of weeks I've been spent leveling another hunter. Surprise! But I was doing a Tauren hunter, so just to give the horde a look. And I don't want to say that the leveling experience from say 1 to 85 is broken. It's not fair to say that, but it's kind of a waste of time really because you're not playing the game. I mean, if you're trying to get to level 85 fast and you've got heirloom items and things, you're really not playing the game. So you're not spending any time doing a lot of the quests. You're not spending a lot of time in the zones. You're certainly not spending a lot of time in Outland, Northrend, and Cataclysm. I mean, when I got to Cataclysm, I think I did all of Vashj'ir, ran a couple of dungeons, did maybe 3 or 4 quests in Deepholm, and I was 85, and that was it. I went all the way I just hopped over to Pandora.
Right,
so
yeah.
You're not really playing the game. And so if you're someone that wants to view that old content in the quests, you kind of have to force yourself to do it. So I like the idea of being able to advance right to level 90.
Yeah, just the time-saving element of it is really the best thing for people for players who largely have seen all the content and have at least 1 or 2 characters that they've gone through all these levels with. So yeah, I think this is wonderful. I don't know what character I don't know what character I would use it on, to be honest, but that's me.
See, I don't know either yet. I'm not sure either, but
I always sort of wanted a tank character because I never had that, so that would probably be what I would use it on. But because I toyed with DK tanking, I started a DK character. He's still sitting in the middle of Outlands right now, but it was just so the system for DKs was just so obtuse. I couldn't stand it.
Yeah, I mean the argument against not going to 90 right away, especially into new characters, you're kind of overwhelmed with all these abilities and things you gain all at once, but you level up so fast now that you aren't on any given level or tier of level long enough to really get to know how to play that character.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So you're still leveling so fast.
And there's add-ons that'll tell you which buttons to press if you're not sure.
This is true.
So.
But I think they're going to have something called an adventures guide or something that's going to help you kind of, it's going to be a guide. It's going to tell you, well, here's the kind of gear you should look for. Here's the content you're ready for, sort of thing. They're going to put something like that in the game to kind of make life easy. One of the things I wanted to mention that we're not getting this time around, which doesn't seem to matter, we're not getting a new class, and there doesn't seem to be any new playable races, which is we've gotten at least one of those every expansion that's come out, and this will be the first one where we don't get a new playable race.
Well, I'm not so sure about that. That kind of feline race that they showed for about 2 seconds, that looks like a possibility.
Oh, I don't doubt it's a possibility, but I don't think they certainly haven't announced it. I think that there's no reason not to announce that.
Yeah,
They announced plenty.
I suppose so as well.
We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, my guess is with the work they had to do with the new player models, that they said, hey, we don't have time to build a new race. You know, I'm sure all their art time and their animation time was probably taken up with the new character models, that they probably figured, hey, we don't have time to invent something new here.
Yeah, we don't need a new class anyway. I mean, hunters already exist. So
right, exactly.
They actually were saying in one of the side interviews that they're not against another hero class. They kind of like how Death Knight turned out, which, with all the problems with it, I'm not so sure about that, but they seem kind of interested in going back and trying it again. So I wonder what that will be someday.
You know, at this point, though, I mean, Death Knights to me, other than they start at level 55, I don't know what differentiates them between any other class at this point. You know, I understand I know they called it a hero class, but I'm not even sure what a hero class is in the game at this point. Versus just a regular class like monks. I mean, you know, monks are just you started yet other than having to start at level 1, I don't know that monks are any different than any other class at this point.
Well, they can be a hero class. Hunters will keep being an awesome class.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but the level 90 thing where you can just zoom up, that's awesome to me, because again, you know, there's something to be said for like learning your character and leveling up and stuff, but like you said, a lot of that's kind of a moot point anyway with how leveling happens, and you're talking about a vast majority of your player base that's played different alts. They're not going to be overwhelmed. You know, it's going to take a little while. There's always a learning curve, but so they already understand the game. And they'll be able to jump into it without too much problem. So
and let's be honest here. I'm leveling my 4th alt to 90. Mm-hmm. I've kind of seen everything already.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
I've leveled 2 and I've already seen more than I need to. So I'm sure there's stuff that I missed.
One alliance and you're covered. So.
Yeah, really, because you do have some different cities, some different quest lines, you know, a different feel to the leveling process. So I suppose that's true. But yeah, I don't see this. I see this as one of the best things. I saw that and I said, really? They're letting us do that? Awesome. That was one of the more shocking things for me, because everything else, while cool, is sort of the type of announcements that we expected. That was more of a out of the blue, oh, awesome. Nice of you to do that, Blizzard.
Yep, exactly.
So, speaking of announcements that we sort of expected, there is going to be new scenarios, there's going to be new battlegrounds, new world bosses, new challenge modes. There's going to be 7 zones at launch.
Technically the old zones we know, but just slightly different.
Right. Well,
right. Yeah, they're kind of in the they're in the same general geographic locations of things that we're used to in Outland.
Yeah, and again, built from the ground up, so it's going to be completely different, not just changed versions of what we remember from BC.
And then I forget the name of it. There's also going to be one world PvP zone as well. So
cool. Yeah, awesome.
In addition to the 7 PvE zones that they've created.
And they did say, like, Netherstorm, someone brought up Netherstorm, which is not one of the launch zones, is going to make an appearance in a future, like one of the major patches of this expansion. But
it's not going to be called Netherstorm, I don't think. It's going to be something else, and it won't. It seems to be that location of where Netherstorm is, but it won't be Netherstorm per se. It won't look like that.
Yeah. So we won't necessarily see everything at launch, but there's going to be 7 new zones. Another big announcement was this Garrison thing. Sorry, did you want to?
Oh, I was just saying the other thing about the zones themselves. They're trying to encourage exploration a little bit. So it's going to be a mix of quests and what things that they did for the Timeless Isle, where you just might stumble across things.
Okay, cool.
And find treasures and things like that. They talked about that. That's something they want to do, which sounds cool.
Yeah, a little bit more of an organic experience rather than a linear one.
Exactly. That's kind of what they said. Or just to make the world feel a little bit more lively and dynamic, so when you're out and about and, there might be a little cave here that looks interesting that's off the beaten path that you might want to go explore. And, they made it, they said, here's a group of people and there's a cart, there's a little treasure chest in the cart, just, kill all these people and steal their treasure. Do stuff like that.
Yeah. So another big announcement was this Garrison thing, which I don't know that I understand exactly how it's going to work, but it's going to be very much like a farm, and I assume like a farm it will be instanced, and it's going to be greatly expanded. So it's going to be a lot
much more involved than the farm that they introduced in Mists of Pandaria, but it's not fair to call it player housing because it's much more. You're building a whole little mini town.
City.
Yeah, and I hear you can get gear through it. Yeah.
And you can recruit NPCs in the world and also in the buildings that you pick.
Yeah.
And you can bring them back and have them go off and do missions for you. And that's the SWTOR bit that I think that they stole. And
for those
you just kind of wait for them to come back and tell you what your loot, and then you can actually give them gear to level them up. And that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I think you're going to be able to name them too, and choose different types. I mean, they're almost going to be it's almost like having your own little virtual guild in some ways, or your own little raid team. I don't know. If you might even be able to take some of these guys out questing with you too, right? In other words,
you'll be able to move the location of it. You'll be able to move it to a different zone if you move your character. So
it's definitely
there's a lot.
It's a whole little mini game in essence, and it's much more involved than the farm. And I think one of the images I saw almost showed that you would actually have a farm within your garrison. They'll probably do something similar where you can plant things. But it sounds like if you're like a jewel crafter, like myself, I'm a jewel crafter and an engineer. I might be able to have a blacksmith or a leather worker as part of my garrison crew, and they may not have full blown access to all the abilities, but they might have some access to that. So a way for you to be multi-profession in a way, but maybe there's no details on that, but it sounded like it was going to be work along those lines. I mean, it just seems like a very cool thing, and you'll be able to grow it over time. There's going to be like 3 tiers of buildings, so you can have something like an inn, and then you can make your inn better, and then eventually evolve it over 3 tiers. Hopefully it's not too expensive. My guess is it's going to be, somewhat of a gold sink here too, as a way to steal our money. But hopefully it's not too expensive to participate in.
Right. Premok says he's going to name one of his NPCs Frostheim.
Awesome.
So I hope you send him out on many quests. Frostheim, go do this.
Yeah, I hope for like hunters. I mean, they did mention something about a stable or something like that. I'm wondering, hopefully it's a chance to show off our pets in like the zoo we've always talked about.
Hey, there you go. Cool. Yeah, that would be an easily integrated element of this garrison, as long as they have different buildings for us anyway. That's a great idea.
Over in the raid panel, they're talking about the new raid structure. There's going to be a new level called Mythic.
Yes.
And I don't know what that's about.
It's beyond heroic. It's beyond heroic. So God knows who's going to want to do that.
We'll talk about that in a minute too.
We'll talk about that with Roger Brown.
Yeah.
We'll definitely want to talk about that with him when we not today, folks. He's not joining us today. That'll be probably in a couple weeks, 2-3 weeks. We'll have him back on. But yeah, the garrison is going to be very, very a lot of fun. I think a very, very interesting feature. That's really like the big one of the big features they're introducing that we don't have now. And I'm looking forward to that, to see how that ends up working out.
Yeah, so I was never big into the farm stuff, but it sounds like there's going to be more that you can get out of it now.
And you can do the farm, or at least the garrison, while you're offline.
Right. So it's going to appeal to more people. It's not going to be quite the time sink, it doesn't sound like. Or if it is the same time sink, you're going to be able to get more out of it within that time frame. So I think this is a cool idea. I hope it's implemented well. It sounds like something that a lot of people will be able to take advantage of in one way or another. So, you guys want to jump to the? Do you want to jump to the raid stuff or the?
Yeah, let's jump to the raid stuff. Then we'll jump to the raid stuff now. Now's a good time to talk about it. And if any of you listeners out there happen to be keeping your eye on the live stream and want to type some stuff in chat for us to throw out there, we'll be happy to do that.
We got a few. We should also try and talk a little bit about items.
And here comes BM Yeager to the rescue here. He said, so let's just talk about the. He's got some updated information here, which was not announced yesterday. But they did say there are going to be 2 new raids at the start of the expansion. Total of 16 bosses. One was going to be High Mall, and the other Blackrock Foundry were the 2. I think one of them is going to have 4 bosses, though, and the other might have help me with the math here. 12. Yeah,
yep.
12.
So, and there are going to be. It's not going to be. They're not going to redo a bunch of old dungeons and stuff, but I think, what was it, like Upper Blackrock or something like that?
Yeah, Upper Blackrock
a dungeon.
A 5-man dungeon, yep.
There's going to be some things that we recognize from back in the day, sort of retooled for this expansion. So that there'll be some interesting things. I'd love to go back into there, and see what's different, see what's the same. It's always fun to do stuff like that.
Yeah.
But there will be the 2 total of 16 bosses. Yeah, it sounds like 4 and 12 with that. So it'll be one that's a little bit easier to tackle, hopefully, and then another that take multiple nights for most raid teams to work through.
Yep. So they're changing their whole raid philosophy here. And to the tiers of raiding, they said yesterday that Flex is awesome. They love Flex. It's been very popular. I've been doing it. I think it's a success. So what they're doing is they're going to be 4 raid difficulties now, and they're going to have Raid Finder, Normal, and Heroic. They're all going to be Flex, which is to say you can run them anywhere from 10 to 25 people.
Yep. Yeah. Which is great.
And apparently, BM Yeager said in the chat room that the Normal and the Heroic, and of course Raid Finder, are all going to be cross-realm from launch, which is huge. That's big. That to me is really big. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's going to make it a lot easier to do things and easier to play how you want in raiding.
Yep. And not only that, but each of those difficulties is going to have its own lockout as well. So I mean, there'll be lots of opportunities, and you can say, "Oh my God, I'm going to have to do all this raiding now," 7 days a week. But you don't. You'll be able to pick and choose which difficulty you want to choose. But
yeah, realistically, like people will do LFR and normal, or LFR and normal, or heroic now, or at least early on in tiers.
Yeah.
So that's not too different. Normal and heroic having separate lockouts is, that might be a little bit interesting, but at the same time, usually you're just sort of progressing in one or the other. You're not doing both at the same time.
Yeah, and they said I'm got my eye on the raid panel here now. They said traditional loot for normal and heroic, which I assume they mean traditional loot means you'll be able to have a loot master and hand it out accordingly versus personal loot, which would be for the raid finder. So normal and heroic will have a traditional loot system, and the drops will be based on the number of eligible players.
Yeah. Okay. That's fine. I actually kind of liked what they did with gear. So the personal loot.
So I'm trying to think that last one. I take that to mean drops based on number of eligible players to maybe mean there's not going to be any junk, right? I mean, it'll be something that's somebody in the raid can use. I don't know. Or if it's going to calculate the number of loot.
Yeah, see, I just took it to mean like loot to raider ratio, not necessarily the type of loot.
That would be nice if they did the type of loot. I
think we'll have to see. We'll have to see about that. It would be nice if they calculated it and like looked at the players' specs and classes and stuff and dropped relevant loot.
Yeah, I think the Old Republic actually has a system like that where they do drop relevant loot, which is cool, which is kind of a neat thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, they almost have to adjust the number of loot drops because of the flex rate anyway. There's 11 people or 24 people. It does make a difference.
Yeah. But the other difficulty, which we didn't talk about, is called Mythic. And that is not going to be flex, and that is going to be a fixed raid size of 20 people.
And it's going to be beyond heroic, apparently.
Yes, beyond heroic, I would assume. So now, your guilds like Methods and the Midwinters that we just saw, those are your mythic. Those are the guys that are definitely going to be doing the mythic content. So that's interesting, though. It's interesting that they settled on the raid size of 20 there.
Yeah.
Which doesn't exist today, right?
It doesn't. So outside of flex, if you hit that number. One thing, what strikes me, and this might have sort of a trickle-down effect with this new raid tier, is if you have mythic. So like right now, heroic, Method just got done beating heroic Garrosh in the live raid at BlizzCon, and it was still challenging for them. They didn't one-shot it. You know, they were. It was a bit of a trying experience, and this is after they killed it a month ago. So they got some more gear. You know, they got some more experience doing these things, and well, maybe they normalize gear. I don't actually remember how they do that for the live raid. But anyway, take what they are now and give them a level beyond that. There is a point at which this would be too hard to beat.
Right, and we don't know if that's...
So,
I understand exactly what you're saying, and that's the real question. Is it going to be harder than what we see now, or is it going to be the equivalent? In other words, you know, these are just labels here, so you could look at it this way. Normal being what Flex is today.
Right,
Heroic
which is
being
what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Normal is today, and Mythic being what Heroic is today. And I think that's probably what they're going for.
Yeah, maybe not exactly that, but I think that if they scaled Mythic beyond what Heroic is now, it would probably be too hard,
yes,
even for the methods of the world. So that's going to have to come down a little bit. And as such, maybe Heroic won't be the new normal, but relative to how hard it is right now, I think it would have to be a little bit easier, and I think that would have to continue to trickle down so that normal is a little bit more like Flex and LFR remains face roll, you know?
Exactly, but the other thing to that too is, you know, you've got a guild like Method and assuming Midwinter who probably run in 25 mans, right? So now you're looking at having to go with 5 fewer people. You got to find 5 people to cut potentially. Meanwhile, the Paragons of the world are been running as 10 mans, and they've now got to find 10 more people to run with them if they want to participate in this content. So
yeah,
there's definitely an impact there, and it's not just those guilds. Anyone running the heroic content, a lot of people I think are doing it as 10 mans, and they're now going to have to look at scaling up, and since that probably won't be cross realm, you're really talking about being a true guild run and trying to make some changes there and recruit some
I didn't think
folks.
about that, but that's a good point, and it will affect a lot of the top guilds, and there's probably some top guilds who are not entirely happy about that right now.
I mean, the other stuff is great. I mean, you know, this is...
There's so much good stuff coming out of here that I feel like whatever complaints we might have are relatively minor.
You know, I'm in a guild that, you know, has some good players and things, but we don't have a real raid team. But my gosh, if we want to stick together and do all this other stuff together, and we just like to hang out most of the time, but, you know, 5 or 6 of us can go create, say we want to do the heroic, assuming that's on the whatever, we can now take 5 of us and go form a flex team and go to openraid.us and find people that want to run with us, and it's a way of establishing a steady group too, right? You find some good people and you say, hey, we're going to do this every Tuesday. Would you be willing to do that? And without having to transfer realms, without having to join a guild, you could actually create a virtual raid team that could run on a regular basis. And if something doesn't work out, you've got this big pool of potential raiders to pull from anywhere to maybe fill in some gaps in some spots. So I really like the cross-realm aspect and the flex aspect. This is an awesome change. I think it's a game-changing change, and I think it's going to have an impact to how people sort of form their little social groups in-game, and I'll be curious to see how this all plays out.
Yeah. Yeah, it will be interesting. There'll be a lot more to come, a lot more developments, and a lot more reactions as well. So that will definitely have a significant impact. That we'll have to see exactly what. I think we covered some of the potential eventualities right there, but we'll have to keep monitoring it.
But that'll be a big question for I say, like Roger when he comes.
Oh yeah,
able to get him on the show and get his perspective on that whole 20-man thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to hear his thoughts on all that, and also see. You know, we got to watch the live raid, or well, you and I got to watch some of it, but just talk to him about his experience at BlizzCon, because you know that's a cool thing. You get to raid in front of a bunch of people, and you know thousands or hundreds of thousands of people watching the streaming, or probably millions. Hell, I don't know. So that's got to be a unique experience to do that live against somebody.
Oh yeah, that's got to be a big deal for them.
I think he's done it before, but do you guys want to go to the hunter-specific information? Or
That's what I was going to suggest, because we're gonna run out of show, and we do have some
yeah,
hunter
we do.
info.
It's not a lot, but we have some. There's a couple of things up top here that will impact hunters that were in one of the things published on the Blizzard site. Let's just run through these real quick. One was the new character bonuses. They said at every level from 91 to 100, characters will earn a major permanent boost to one of their key spells and abilities, and they gave an example. Said a fire mage might earn a plus 50% damage boost to Pyroblast or a plus 30% boost to Scorch. So,
and I want to point out that this is a variation on something that we suggested in the Hunter project, so I'm not saying that's where it came from, but I'm calling it a win.
Yeah, and so we don't know which hunter abilities. We don't know how that's going to work, whether it's going to be based on your spec, or are you going to get to choose the ability and the bonus. I don't know that they would go that route, because that might make things a little bit more complicated.
Sure.
And a little harder for them to balance. So it might be something like, okay, your signature ability. So maybe Kill Command, if you're Beast Mastery, will get a nice big boost like that as you level up. It's interesting. I mean, maybe it's like another way of doing the way they used to have the old, Kill Command level 1, Kill Command level 5. They used to have tiers of abilities. So it's just maybe a way of doing that, perhaps. But that's a nice little thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Should be interesting to see how that works. I like it.
Yeah.
Something different without really changing too much. And sorry, I was getting, my phone blew up all at once. I was trying to deal with it while you were talking, and then I came back and I was like, "What were we talking about?" So
we talked about the new character bonuses. Well,
so I basically just said, "Yes, I agree."
Well, Item Squish. The Item Squish is coming. People who've played the demo have reported that they've seen it. They're looking at, I don't know, what, Wrath of the Lich King type numbers, I guess. So you're going to see less DPS, but more DPS at the same time, kind of thing. We're still going to be able to kill the things that we used to be able to kill, but our stats are going to be more normalized.
Yeah,
there.
We knew this was coming, just not when. Because just how the burden on the calculations when our numbers get so high and there's so many modifiers. So, yeah, we knew this was coming, just not when, but it's really not going to change anything in practice. The numbers themselves will be different and lower, I'm sure, than what we think they might be or what we're used to, but relative to everything else.
Right, your tanks are going to have a lot less health now and that sort of thing. But, everything will be, I guess, scaled appropriately. So.
Sure, absolutely. And there are stat changes. Some stats are retiring. Hit and expertise retiring. So I don't know. That's
kind of good. I don't mind that. I don't know.
But
what that will mean for reforging. They're not necessarily replacing them with other like stats. But go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, but actually, I think it takes a turn for the good when you see some of the cool and potentially really interesting things that it's being replaced with, such as movement speed and cleave. So more dynamic stats and not abilities, but attributes, I guess I should say, like movement speed, like cleave. So this is interesting to me, because now our stat values are going to be affecting very tangible things and even play style on certain fights and in certain raids and things. So that'll actually be an interesting level of nuance. Whereas hit and expertise, you get to the cap, it's largely a set it and forget it, and you might have to reforge when you get some new gear and such, but you're not actively thinking about these things outside of when you're sitting at the reforger.
Yeah, I like the idea of having things like movement speed, cleave, and they also mentioned a couple other things, things that might give you a small AoE heal if you're a healer or something like that. So that's kind of cool. That's great, and I agree. Like, to me, hit and expertise just felt so redundant with this expansion, having both those essentially being so similar and similar caps and things. It was just kind of and you just pulled up an add-on that told you what you needed to do to reforge your gear so that you were appropriately capped, and that was all you did with it.
And I assume this means our pets are now permanently hit capped and expertise capped for pet tanking. So Blizzard, don't let us down there.
Yeah, hopefully that's a good point. I assume so too, that they'll just build that in, but who knows?
Yes, but we do have. They have some. I guess they talked about this. It can't be data mined necessarily, or maybe it was. Maybe there was like a demo or something people were playing. But we do have some initial information on level 100 talents for hunters.
Yeah, they had playable demos out there, and that's where people are getting this from. And they had some, I think, pre-made level 90. Well, 90 characters there, or that they could look at these talents. So this is where this is coming from. So if you go to Wowhead and place Wowhead actually already has a talent calculator with these up there already.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. Now, one thing I want to say about all these before we mention the specifics is that I love the fact that none of them contribute to button bloat. They find a way around this. So they're not adding another castable button. They're giving us something interesting to do that finds a way to remove this need. And it also sort of co-ops and does a variation on something else we suggested in the Hunter project. So I'm calling this victory number 2 here. There's one that has created some controversy involving pets. That's going to be the one people talk most about. It's going to be the one that divides people sometimes. I think it's a good thing. We'll get to why in a minute. But the first is its bola shot. Fires a bola at the target, which wraps around them. After 1 second, it explodes, dealing 3,000 fire damage to them and an additional 2,000 fire damage to all enemies within 5 yards. So it's a little bit of an AoE ability. But here's the other important thing. This replaces Arcane Shot. So one would assume it's doing more damage than what Arcane Shot would, especially in AoE, where the mobs are tightly packed, AoE instances. And I assume this damage will scale appropriately with whatever modifiers we have, or attack power or anything. Those damage values are static, but I can't imagine they would stay like that.
Yeah.
The second,
I like that.
Yeah, go ahead.
I would say no. I like that ability. I like the fact that it replaces Arcane Shot. So like you said, that's their workaround for the button bloat there, which I think is kind of cool. It'd be interesting to see if it has the same, like if Thrill of the Hunt, for example, and I don't know that I think they just introduced level 100 talent. That none of this is remotely final, but for example, Thrill of the Hunt, would this also impact bola shot? Such that it would have the reduced focus cost, etc., like the Arcane. So I'd be curious to see if they kind of include that kind of synergy with these things.
Yeah. The second ability, it's called Snipe. Now this is a replacement for, it's similar in that it's a replacement for Steady and or Cobra Shot, depending on what spec you're in. 2.77 second cast, requires a ranged weapon, 40-yard range, etc., etc. So you carefully line up the perfect shot, dealing 150% weapon damage, generates 60 focus. So this sounds like a considerable improvement to what we have right now with Steady and Cobra, but it cannot be cast while moving. So this creates the element of, do we have a lot of movement on this fight? How good are you managing your movement on raid fights or in PvP or what have you? So it probably couldn't be a PvP ability. I can't imagine something like that would be, because you're moving pretty constantly. So
yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. So already we look at these first two, and there's two different types of fights, or maybe PvE, PvP, where they could be more useful than the other. So you can't necessarily say, well, this one does more damage, so that's the one you have to take. Already beautiful, because we don't have a single correct answer for every situation, and it's not contributing to button bloat. So far, so good. I feel like they're 2 for 2 here.
Yeah, I like the snipe ability a lot. I like the fact that it can't be cast while moving, so it's a nice trade-off. It's like a variation, as you say, on the current Steady Shot and Cobra Shot, and gives you some options there. I like kind of like where they went with that one.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And it adds the element of, we're these trained snipers, but you got to line up your shot. So it has sort of a huntery feel to it, So I'm going to take the time to line up the perfect shot here, but I can't be running around like crazy. That makes sense to me. So it fits within the idea I have of a hunter. So the last one, it's called With or Without You. I actually pulled up the U2 song in my other browser to play, but I don't think I'm going to do that for when I announce this. So this is the one that's created a little bit of positive and negative feedback more than the other two.
It's an interesting concept here.
Yeah, it's a passive. Yeah, it's a passive. So we're not replacing a shot, but it's still not contributing to button bloat. But it increases.
Well, it's got different effects for whether or not you're beast mastery or marksmanship. So marksmanship and survival get one thing, and beast mastery get another.
Yeah, and when you're in Beastmaster, it increases the effect of your pet's combat experience to 70% increased damage. Your pet now gains the following abilities regardless of spec, and there's a bunch of them, and we're familiar with most of them: Rabid, Spiked Collar, Thunder Stomp, Blood of the Rhino, Great Stamina, Bullheaded, Cornered, and Boar's Speed. So you're getting a lot of things that different specs of pets used to get all thrown together here.
Yeah, you're getting just a beast of a pet, basically.
Yep,
it's going to have all,
which is awesome. Yeah, which is great. This is a great soloing talent for sure. I would think. Obviously you're going to be max level, so it's nothing you'll be able to use while leveling. But but what's not clear here is whether or not the hunter ability damage gets nerfed at all in regards to this. It doesn't sound like it, which would be interesting to see. In other words, that's a lot of boosting to the pet, which is what you'd expect. You'd want your pets as beast mastery to be doing a lot of damage, but I don't know. 70% increased damage. If their damage already is similar to what it is now, yeah, they're gonna be just trucks. It's gonna be great.
And when you think of your pet as being, a glorified dot in some ways, and you think it's certainly going to make Beast Mastery a much easier spec to play in terms of being able to produce damage, because you can just set your pet on a target, and that alone is going to allow him to allow you to do a whole bunch of damage.
Yeah.
Without having to think about it.
I'm okay with that. This is the one large passive damage area that I'm okay with being really, really big, because I feel like at one point our passive damage got to be so large that it didn't really matter what we were casting. You were able to do 85 or 90% of your damage just spamming any button, because there was some of that you had auto shot, you had your pet, especially in Beastmaster, you had a lot of passive procs and things like that. But this was the one that I was really okay with, because it fits with the flavor of the spec, where you really want your pet to just be feel like it's this unstoppable force that's contributing probably at this point the majority of your DPS. I'd be surprised if it didn't after this massive boost with this ability. So yeah, this is going to be great for people who love their pets in Beastmaster, and like you said, might also help so it's easier to play.
Right, and for those who don't like their pets, well, there's something for you too.
Yeah, this is the controversial part, and again, I don't mind this. So again, passive, but increases all damage dealt by 30%. The hunter, and this is for marksman and survival, when you don't have a pet active. So it's called Lone Wolf, I think. And so basically, if you take this 10, this isn't necessarily going to be the best talent to take here. I don't know that everyone will be taking it at level 100 if you're marksman or survival, but they seem to be pushing marksman and survival away from pets with it. Some people are saying hunters need pets, this is what they're about. Beastmaster hunters need pets, that's what they're about. Marksman is ranged physical damage, survival is dots and nature damage. So I don't think this is the worst thing in the world, and I also think it opens the opportunity for them to really differentiate these two specs in terms of the type of things they're casting, where their damage is coming from, and how the spec feels.
Exactly.
So that's why I really like it. I love my pet too. If you love your pet, you can either not take this talent or play Beastmaster, but it opens up a world of possibilities for what they can do with these two, where all of your damage is coming from just you.
And that's the question here, and that's why I sort of wondered, when you saw the Beastmaster piece of it, which just increased the pet's damage ability, but didn't necessarily nerf the hunter's ability here. I mean, is the marksman or survival hunter going to be doing more damage without a pet? I assume they would have to make it such, or is it going to be more damage without a pet, or the same damage without a pet? You know, is this going to be appropriately balanced between these three specs here?
Yeah, that's the question, and I'm sure they can they'll tweak numbers as they get, more data on it and stuff. So I assume it would have to increase your damage a little bit overall, or it really wouldn't be worth it, or you would just take like Snipe or Bola Shot, one of the other two abilities, as Marksman and as Survival, which will undoubtedly be DPS boosts in the right setting compared to what they're replacing.
Because there's the other problem with this, the idea of being able to run without a pet and do as much damage is kind of cool, but on the other hand, pets bring buffs. So you're by taking this talent as a marksman or survival, you're saying, hey, I'm not going to be bringing a buff to the table. They couldn't bring things like a battle res. That's BM only as well as hero. But you're giving up buffs and pets don't die that often. There aren't too many encounters where you have a hard time keeping a pet alive during a raid or something like that. So I don't know, other than being able to look different or feel different and say, hey, I'm a hunter, I'm a more of a ranger or a sniper or something like that. I don't know. It'd be an interesting talent to see how this all plays out. It seems more like it's I don't want to say role play talent, but it almost falls in that category a little bit.
Yeah. And now, one other thing that I want to pull in at this point is that this is very speculative. However, in the video for Warlords of Draenor, they showed some hunter characters, and first off, they had a quiver, which I don't know if this is just sort of a visual thing or if it suggests that we might be seeing the return of ammo. I would suspect that it's more just a visual thing.
Yeah, I can't imagine ammo coming back in any way, shape, or form.
Yes. However, they did show a hunter without a pet, which now we know now has a correlation to an ability, and we saw a hunter using a sword, so like a melee in a melee sense. So when I say that it opens up possibilities for differentiating these two specs and how they bring their damage, that, again, I don't see this as being likely, but something like that might be one direction that they take, say, survival. Maybe they have some melee abilities and turn them more into a hunter-ranger that, can kill at close range or long range. So that really intrigues me. That I think is one of the cooler. Even if they don't do that, I think this is an interesting step to try to differentiate the specs a little bit more. But that might be one thing that we see. And again, this is all very speculative. We don't have anything really concrete outside of what we've seen in the video. But it was interesting that people pointed this out, and it may have some connection to what's going on.
Yeah. So, and just one side note here. I've got peeking over to the raid panel, and they're talking about leveling rewards here, which which we had talked about here with the passive bonuses and things that you might get, like as you go, like the increased damage to Pyroblast or the core abilities, which is exactly what we thought it was. But one thing they did say on their slide here is don't expect a lot of class changes. So I don't know how much of a change we'll get. So interesting. They haven't talked much about classes at all this BlizzCon, and I don't know that they really plan to, but we'll see what kind of changes they have in mind for hunters.
Yeah, and Liger Wolf said hunters could be more of a ranger next expansion, and that's kind of what I'm thinking with this. And again, if they don't do that, that's fine, but if they went in that direction with, say, the survival spec, I think that would be really cool. I think a lot of people would kind of push back on it, saying, where's our pet? We're a ranged class. This is terrible. But I don't want three specs that all feel the same, and this is one way to make that happen where they don't. So I think it's cool. I think it's a step in the right direction, and I'm excited to see how it turns out.
Yeah, I mean, it is an indication that of what they want to do, and then the pet or not pet is an interesting concept. And like I said, I have no problem with someone being a survivor or marksman and wanting to have an operative way to just be by themselves and be a ranged DPSer and not have to have the pet. I know it's sort of the hallmark of what a hunter is and a hunter has been, but
yeah, I'm telling you, it's a hallmark of what a Beastmaster hunter has been. We should be okay. We should be okay with this. We should be okay with this. So I know there will be people who aren't, but try to look at it for what they could do with these changes rather than what they're taking away. So at least right now, I think we need to maintain a healthy sense of optimism, especially with everything else we have coming out with these announcements.
Yeah, so, they're starting to talk a little bit about itemization changes here, and so yeah, they said, like we talked about, hit and expertise are gone. So yeah, that's a couple of stats we will not have to worry about in the next expansion, which is nice.
Yeah, we did have a couple questions submitted to us, but we're already over time, and both of these I feel like ones that we could take a little while talking about. So I kind of want to archive them for next week or the week after. Yeah, one of them's a complete Ali question too. I know you'll want to tackle it. It definitely gets into the lore a little bit and what you think might happen. So we did get your questions. Thank you for submitting them. We just had a lot to go through today, which is never a bad thing. It's really been, we've been starving for information the last few weeks. So this is good that we couldn't get through nearly everything this week.
Yeah, so, I mean, like I said, it's not even that, and there was just a lot of information. Most of this information is, oh my gosh, they just said reforging is gone in the next expansion. So there you go. Late breaking news. So dodge and parry gone, hit and expertise and gone, and reforging gone as well. Which and again, I think we did pose that question early on in our show, is that, hey, if you're getting rid of hit and expertise, what is there going to be left to reforge? Just mastery, haste, and crit. I mean, it's not that complicated at that point. So yeah, so they're getting. What else are they doing?
They're trying to simplify things. It's like you get your gear, but you then have to go and you have to gem it, you have to enchant it, you have to reforge it, you have to transmog it, and it just
and the valor upgrades
you should
too.
just be happy to have the gear and not worry about all the rest.
And that's
which is kind of nice.
Yep, and so they're going to be interchanging enchanting too. So fewer items can be enchanted, but more choice and enchants for those items. So that's always good. So maybe, you'll be able to enchant your 4 core pieces of gear, like your chest, head, legs, or something like that. Weapon. Yeah. Give you multiple options of what you want to put on there. That's kind of an interesting change.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot. I mean, late breaking news. This is up to the minute stuff, guys.
It is the minute stuff.
You can't get this on other podcasts, even though you probably can.
Fewer items. We'll have gem sockets. Gems will be more powerful. No socket set bonuses or meta gems, and sockets are a bonus, so don't count against the budget.
Okay, and with that, you have been. I mean, we could sit here for the rest of the day and probably do updates from BlizzCon.
Live.
Yeah, it just happened they were doing the big panel of the day for World of Warcraft that they started 20 minutes ago, so it happens to be ongoing.
So yeah, no, this has been interesting. We pulled a few items from it for the podcast, but again, we're gonna have so looking forward a little bit. We decided not to bring on a new permanent co-host. I know we had Keldul on one week, but we did have a few people express some interest, and they were all really qualified, and both with some had done some podcasting, and they had all played the game quite a bit. So I'm hoping to bring some of them in at some point in the next week or two. And I've also been talking to Michelle Morrow, who is at BlizzCon this week, and has been a frequent guest of the show, and we're going to have her on at some point to talk about her BlizzCon impressions as well. So that's what I'm hoping to have happen in the next couple of weeks. Right now, we don't have anyone officially agreed upon, but like I said, I've talked to all these people, and we're just trying to make sure it works out with everyone's schedule. So we will have a show the next couple weeks. We'll have a ton more from BlizzCon. Everything we didn't get to today, everything that's still coming out, everything that will come out in the next day or so.
I know. And one other tidbit while we're still yapping here. So armor changes. There's just going to be like plate, mail, leather, and cloth. The primary stat is going to change based on your spec, including set bonuses. How nice is that? So there's no more intellect gear and strength gear and stuff. That's pretty nice. So they're making the armor more dynamic there. So, hey, it's just going to be a mail chest piece. And if you're I guess if you're a shaman, for example, and you go to enhancement, it's going to have all your enhancement stats on it. If you switch over to elemental, it's going to have all your elemental stats. That's great for the hybrid classes.
And that makes sense if you're not going to be able to reforge anymore.
Yeah, for hunters, obviously that's not going to have much impact on us whatsoever.
Right.
Other than we compete with gear with every shaman in the game, I guess, but it doesn't matter.
Well, if you guys want to keep going, but I'm about to start the outro here.
Well, I did have a few more last-minute upgrades from earlier in the. Oh,
that's right, the Garrison.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, the upgrade to Garrisons, you'll need to find blueprints. I don't know.
Which are blue.
Which are blue.
It looks like a scroll. It's blue.
Nice. Armory building gives Striking Blade a buff that persists for 4 hours and persists through death. Cool.
So it's like drinking a flask or something.
Yeah, so you can get buffs. You can set your followers to mine, so you can generate ore. More followers equals more ore. New garrison tier levels offer new plots, and you have to fill all the plots to upgrade the tier. Plots come in small, medium, and large. Okay, yeah. So I mean, it's really going to be a cool little mini game. So this is just some more interesting tidbits about what we're going to be able to do. So including getting buffs that persist through death, which is awesome.
Yeah, we're all going to be garrisoning, I think, if only for the buffs, because those would be pretty cool.
Buffs, gear, gems, enchants, crafting. Yeah, it's so much stuff. It's going to be awesome. So,
yeah, this is.
I'm excited. Yeah, you guys sound like kids in a candy shop. Like
I am. This is like Christmas in November here.
Yeah, I'm excited you're talking about it, but I feel like I'm not bringing the same level of excitement that you are.
I think this would be a good time to have Euripides, because what this is going to do to the auction house, I don't know. Right. That would be really interesting to hear what he's going to say.
He's excited about stuff too. I remember him just going nuts about like flex rating and then talking for 30 minutes.
I mean, they're really changing some things like these tertiary.
No durability loss.
I think that's like a stat that you can put on your gear. That's like a third.
Don't get my hopes up.
A tertiary stat. So instead of like hitting expertise, their tertiary stats are going to be like movement speed and no durability loss and other things. And they've got movement speeds that will stack. I mean, this is going to be, they're really focusing on some
size of the boots on that dwarf.
Fun here.
It's like bigger than his head.
Wow.
So you're really going to be able to customize.
You know what they say about dwarves with big feet. They need big boots, is what they say.
Well, back in my day, it was the shoulders that used to be massive. Now, apparently, it's dwarven boots. But,
I guess Ali got in my head after that intro line where she was like, "No, you got to bring the fury."
Oh, wait till you get to my outro. I am ready. I am prepared.
Oh my goodness! I don't even. You know what? I think you should go last right now. So let's.
I am last.
No, I am. The Nerve Canada is. So let's jump. Yeah, you can go after me because I don't even want to compete here.
Okay.
But with that, you have been listening to episode 193, the BlizzCon Spectacular of the Hunting Party Podcast. I'm Arth from the Warcraft Hunters Union.
And I'm Dark Brew from the Brewhall.com and the Brewhall on Twitter.
And I'm Molly Sonder from the Hunting Party Podcast.
All right, check us out on iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, or add our RSS feed to your reader. And these links will always be available in our show notes.
Yep, and if you like us, please don't be shy about leaving us a review on iTunes or YouTube, especially one where you tell us how much warlocks need nerfed.
You can submit a title for this week's show by emailing us at huntingpartypodcast@gmail.com and have your name mangled on air by professionals.
All right, stay thirsty, my friends, and remember to drink your dark brew lager.
In honor of whatever Ali's about to do, Loktar Ogar.
Oh, damn. I almost used that one. Hopefully this will work.
Alliance, do you remember who you are? You are the Alliance of Draenor, champions of justice, and I love you for it. Alliance,
Just had to use that.
There you
Just
go.
once.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah, and for those who know, yeah, so they're talking about Item Squish now, which we knew was coming back, and getting into some boring details about that, I'm sure. It's like, that seems to be that's such a big deal for me. In other words, as long as I'm able to kill stuff like I was before, I'm happy, and kill stuff moving forward, I'm happy. I don't care if the crit is 1,000,000 or 1,000. It doesn't really matter to me a whole lot.
Yeah, it's all about being able to top meters, I don't care what we're doing as long as everyone else is not doing way better. So, with any of the levels.
Yeah, and that's what they're saying. They're saying, hey, your ability to solo old content will not change. It will still take 5 seconds to kill a timeless Isle Gulp Frog. And that's all that really matters, right? I mean.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of old content, I gotta find some dates here. So all hunter raiding, we did a lot in Kata. We killed like 7 or 8 current tier bosses back then, and that was awesome. I'm not gonna have. There's not enough activity on the WHU, I think, to do something like that and make it. I know you can do some cross realm things, but like you can't do flex. Flex is only for, I think, Siege of Orgrimmar right now, so that hurts us as well with numbers and stuff. So
Correct.
what I'm thinking is, and like I have a little bit less time now too, and
yeah,
I'm
but
not raiding regularly.
Cross Realm works for everything else prior to Siege of Orgrimmar.
Right. Well, Old World, yeah.
No, but I mean
Cross Realm, yeah. Okay, I'm mixing up Cross Realm and Flex, but yes, it does. So we would be able to get some groups, but I don't know that I have the time to like coordinate all of this. And there's also like I've been talking to a couple hunters, and there's a lot of fights where like there's so much unavoidable damage that it's harder to find fights where we think we'd have a more reasonable shot. In Kata, it seemed like there was a lot of bosses that we were able to find where, yeah, it was a little bit of a DPS race, but at the same time, if we were smart about it, there was a lot of damage we could avoid. And there's less fights like that are identifiable in the current expansion, in Mists of Pandaria. So I don't know that it's something that we could do at the level that we did in Kata. So what I think I'm going to do is just I'm going to set some dates on the WHU. We're going to get together. We're going to do some cross-realm stuff, and we're just going to go destroy old world content. I think that would be a fun way to kind of send us off, because we haven't done events, and since Frostheim retired, I've decided that there's actually a lot of planning that goes into those. So that's something that I wasn't planning on continuing, but I think this might be something nice for everyone to do, where we can get a bunch of people in the community together and have some fun, but it's also not going to be we're not going to have to bash our heads on wiping on current tier content. We can just have some fun.
Sounds good.
Yeah, so you guys are of course invited to that whenever it happens. But I'm gonna find some dates and times, talk to a few people, see what dates. They had been running some nostalgia content on the WHU Guild, so I'm gonna try to find a couple people that were doing that and see what days might work for various hunters, and then just set a couple dates, and like I said, we'll go have some fun. It'll be a nice way to send off the expansion.
I've actually been going through and doing some of the old quests and raids and things like that, like Caverns of Time and the Argent Tournament. And it just is so laughable to see this golden emblemed boss with 14,000 hit points.
Yep. Yeah, that's it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I may do that a little bit too. I may take this new hunter I created and go back and do some of those outland, just for some of the storylines, just to get now that it's like relevant to the upcoming expansion. I want to go through the
right. Yeah, that might be interesting.
Like the Grand quest where I think you meet Garrosh for the first time and all that. I'm going to go see what all that's about now and everything else.
Yeah, that could be really fun. That could be really fun. I forgot that you met Garrosh out there.
I'm going to turn you guys into lore nerds yet.
No, that's no. You're really not. There's certain things I just, the Pokemon, the achievement hunting, lore. There's just some things. There are interesting elements of the lore that I enjoy knowing about, but I like having other people tell me about them. I don't necessarily like going and finding out for myself.
Yeah, I try to. Like I said, it's hard for me to even find a good timeline or something of events and things to figure out. But I like some of the characters. I like some of the things they did. I like the Arthas story. I like the kind of the Burning Legion and just some of the characters they created. I think it'd be fun, with this expansion to see all the cool orcs clans and the orc people that you've maybe heard of here and there, but at least I don't know a lot about. But I know enough. I've heard them enough that it'd be fun to kind of experience people like Gromosh and Duratan and Ner'zhul and who's the other, Kilrog and Blackhand and Kargath are all those. Like they've got this all-star lineup of orcs for this next expansion.
Yeah, good God! Like you just named all of those. If you had asked me to name all those orcs, I might have gotten one of them. Like I might have gotten Gromosh. The rest of them, no chance in hell. So
all right. Well, here's what I'm doing. I'm at the World of Draenor's official site, and they've got a nice little section here with their pictures and their names right underneath them. That's how I know who's who. They came up with a very cool wallpaper.
Don't lie. You're a closeted.
Which I put on my desktop, and if I just look at them, I couldn't tell you who. I could name a couple of them.
No, but, you don't try to backtrack now. You're a closet lore nerd.
Yeah. He is now. But don't forget, there's also the Draenei in this, and we're going to learn a whole lot more about them than we have in basically since BC the first time around.
Right.
And they're going to introduce a new female who...
Yeah, I can't remember her name, but she's going to be like a main character, which is kind of nice that they're going to have she said she's like a Joan of Arc type character, which is cool, because people complain about that. There's just not enough female heroic characters in these games, and it's nice to, especially with all this testosterone flowing around with these orcs, to have something like that to balance it out.
Kidding.
See some women like that play.
Well, they missed a chance. They could have made Sylvanas head of the Horde.
Yes, they could have.
Yeah, but then we would have been focused on her as opposed to fighting the orcs. So
someone asked about Sylvanas yesterday, and I don't.
World of Warcraft: Rise of the Hunters.
They said she'll have a part in this. I don't know how big a role she'll have in this.
Well, she's got no interest in the orcs and stuff. She's busy with her bit.
But how did the Forsaken come about? How did the Forsaken come about?
They were created by Arthas and the Plague. The poison grain in Stratholme.
Okay, so that's where the Forsaken came up. Okay.
They got turned into by that, and then they went and they did the when Arthas, I guess, went kind of bad. They had a lich that was leading through to the Blood Elves. And so if you go to the Blood Elf town, there's this big swath right straight through the zone. And that was basically just the undead just marching straight through. And that's where they got Sylvanas. And that was basically one of the games. Was
it
doing
one of the Warcraft
thing,
3 or something like that? Or
something like that. Goodbye, Arthwu. I'm sorry. I'll get off my soapbox soon.
He snuck. Well, some of the lore is fun to talk about. But see, something like that, where if we're going back in time and you can prevent that from happening, if I were Sylvanas, I'd be kind of worried, that, hey...
On the other hand, if that didn't happen, think of who Sylvanas would be right now if she wasn't killed by Arthas and turned into a banshee.
Think of who Arth would be.
She was powerful. She was alive. She was an elf, and she was kind of happy,
See, I don't think we'll get that, but that's what I want. I want like that Planet of the Apes ending. I want to come out of the portal, and then this is all over, and say, oh my God, what did we just do? And find out that there's Arthas standing there. It's like, not the Lich King, and just change the world. I don't think they won't go down that road. I don't think, but that would be kind of fun.
It would be awesome. And
that would be a Cameron's time
thing. The reason I'm ducking out is because I have company coming in a few minutes here, not just because you guys are on your lure soapbox. So we're getting drunk and going to watch Thor 2. So it's going to be fun. Yeah.
I want to see that.
So I do have to take off, but excellent show. Dark, we'll see you in a few weeks.
Yeah, see you in a couple weeks. Yep.
Yeah, Ali, I'll set up the show for next week. I did it the once with only the one minor snag that I don't think I'll recreate next time, and I'm gonna try to get. I'm gonna see if Michelle can make it next week. I already told her either next week or the week after, and she said yeah, absolutely. So I'm gonna see if she can make next week, and if not, we'll try to. We'll adjust, but I'm gonna try to get her for next week, and then some others for the week after, and we'll go from there. So I'll be in touch. Yep. Later, guys.
See you, Arthur. But
that's how the undead came around. It's pretty much almost entirely the story of Arthas after that lich, after he killed off that lich guy, whose name I cannot remember, but I should.
Oh, I don't know either. Was it like one of those, like the Morgraine people or something like that?
No, it was.
See, I don't know.
He was one of the floaty elvy guys, but yeah, he because it very quickly becomes the story of Arthas. We've kind of all been really familiar with Arthas, and I'm not a big Draenei fan, but I'm actually kind of interested to find out more about them. Sorry, because we really kind of don't know much about them. So I hope they turn out to be really interesting.
In their prime, I guess. I don't know if about that, but obviously.
Well, not the prime, because the prime would have been before they were on the run from Sargeras.
Okay, so they would have been like, where are they from? Argus or something like that?
Yeah,
whatever
Argus.
Planet. Yeah.
So I guess they came from Argus to Draenor, and small difficulties there with the orcs. But, they seem to be doing pretty well. I mean, they have lots of cities, and they're beautiful cities. So, it's nice. And the architecture is just like what we're used to. It's just a little more slightly different, but it's familiar, and I like that. It's not strange.
It's not. And that's what would be cool about this is like,
Kel'Thuzad, thank you.
Oh, Kel'Thuzad, okay. Hopefully they'll make Draenor look similar enough so you can get hints of familiarity with Outland, but yet being totally unique and different all at the same time.
Yeah, I'm expecting it to have that familiarity, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Not like the Cataclysm familiarity. We're like, oh, if you just smush these two pieces of rock together, that's what it used to look like. It won't be along those lines, but
yes,
you get a sense of what it might have been like. But yeah, so it looks like the current panel that we're watching is now in some sort of Q&A, so who knows what silly things people are asking.
Yeah, I've been kind of listening to the questions a little bit, and they haven't said much that's worth passing along just yet.
Yeah, I find that's usually the case with these things that they.
Yeah, occasionally people have a good question, but mostly they're very long and winded, and just suck up time rather than just getting their question out.
Yeah. Right. Well, on that note, I think I'm going to call this one a show. I want to try and get this one edited ASAP so you guys out there in iTunes land and wherever else can get a hold of this before it becomes irrelevant. But thanks everyone for tuning in. I always like the BlizzCon show because there's just so much to discuss here. So I had a good time today. I'm looking forward to this expansion.
I can jump shot, BM, MM, and SB. I can rock out any tree. Never worried about my threat, 'cause I've got FD and misdirect. Catching loose mobs in my traps. I never miss, 'cause I am hit capped. 'Cause I'm the hunter, not the marked. I'm the fighter, not the spark. I'm the kiter, not the kite. I'll top meters every fight. Rated in cave dealing death. Just me, my gun, and my trusty vet. Now let's begin with Illidan, Osirian, and Gil'jadan, Magdamar, Asgalor, Gruul, Cthulhu, and Razorgore, Onyxia to Ragnaros. Which one have we killed the most? Kel'Thuzad to Malygos. We even killed Akama's ghost. Feels like we're getting close, all that running as a ghost. Yogg-Saron, Therian, Sartharian, Magtheridon, Sapphiron, Lucifer to Sulfuron, Archaon, Amalon, Corellon, Algalon. The faction champions, the death toll rolling on and on. Gar, Veil, Executus, Chromagus, Jaraxus, Moon, Urukilthus. We won't stop